Swing big and save even bigger with our Big League Markdowns at Capital Ford in Santa Fe. This is your shot at big league deals, like a new 2025 Ford F-150 XLT 4-wheel drive Power Boost Hybrid, now up to $9,900 off MSRP, or a new 2026 Ford F-250 Super Duty, now up to $6,100 off MSRP. We're offering up home run deals all day, every day, with these Big League Markdowns at Capital Ford in Santa Fe.
Good evening and welcome to another episode of Deep in the Dugout. I'm your host for this evening, Ed Nunez. I'm joined by my co-host, the owner of the Pit Press, Mr. Eric Moulton. Eric, welcome to the show.
Yeah, happy to be back, Ed. Happy to be talking to our next guest, and we're wrapping up a fun week. I know that you and Nick were busy with the state tournament, state baseball, and softball. A lot of good games there, but let's jump into it.
Well, you know, Eric, we said this to Andrea before she got on, but we've had some outstanding decorated athletes on this platform. Tonight we are joined by UNM women's softball legend Andrea Howard. Her career stats: she had 187 hits, 36 doubles, 8 triples, 47 home runs, 147 RBIs. She drew 123 walks, batting average of .313, and on-base percentage of 4.427. Named to the Mountain West 25th anniversary team. She also played for the Italian Olympic softball team from 2017 to 2021. We'll try to get to as much, also in medical school now. We'll try to get to as much of this as we can. Andrea, welcome to the show.
Thank you guys so much for having me tonight.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, we have had, Kenny Thomas is on and Lobo Legends. And when we looked at, and I remember, I did a lot of PA when you played there. And I remember how good you were. And when we look back at your resume, I told Eric, I said, as far as rankings, we're proud to have had Terrence Mathis on and some great athletes, but you're right up there. And we're glad to, another episode of Deep in the Dugout. And it's timely because the Lobo women softball team, we're trying to get Nicole Orgegon on, and hopefully in a couple weeks we'll be able to. Just made their first Mountain West Conference tournament in 20 years. It was a heartbreaker against Grand Canyon. They leading in that last inning, and Grand Canyon scores 5-6 in the last inning to win it. But it was good to see the Lobos back in the conference tournament. I'm going to kick this off. There's so many things we want to get to, and tell us. We're going to start with this though. Tell us about your Eastdale Little League experience in 2012. You were a champion, and your manager was Reno Sanchez. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. So I played for Eastdale for Little League, and I actually played for Altamont Little League first, but I had a lot more friends that went to Eastdale, so my dad let me go and play with them. And in 2012, we went to the World Series, and I remember that year specifically. It was so special because Reno Sanchez, like you said, was our head coach. My dad was one of the coaches, and then there was just another dad on the staff for coaching. And we did two-a-days during that summer. As 12 and 13-year-olds, we were up and at it at 6 a.m, and then we were up and at it again at 5:30 p.m. And we would just do two-a-day practices. we ended up going undefeated that entire summer. And we, won the Little League World Series, and it was just such a cool experience. I think that was like the first summer that a lot of us learned truly how much work needs to be put into the sport in order to be successful at it.
I bet there's that's and then there's more work to be done later on. I want to mention one of our listeners and our viewers. He's actually a friend of your dad, and he's the one. Your dad, Kevin, he's the one that got you to come on here. John Romero, I want to thank you for that and putting us in contact with Andrea. You mentioned that about the Little League experience there, but there's a question here. This actually came from John. How did you get the renowned nickname Mo?
Yeah. So when I was first starting at Eastdale, there was a girl named Ariana on my team. And our coach at the time thought that he would get Ariana and Andrea confused. So he named me Mo and her Larry. There wasn't a third stooge, but it was because of the Three Stooges. And so Mo just kind of stuck since Little League. And I've just been nicknamed Mo since then.
That's kind of funny. And there's always an origin of names, right? And things like that. So in 2016 and 17, you were part of La Cueva team that went 28-0 and won the 6A championship. You were also the New Mexico Gatorade Player of the Year and batted .598. Tell us a little bit about that season. La Cueva's Ron Romero, they have, I told you I'm the voice at Western. We have 2 La Cueva players at Western. So tell us a little bit about that season when you went undefeated.
Yeah, first I have to say Ron Romero is an incredible coach. He's a very humble man, and his philosophy is all about working hard. Regardless of what you're doing, you're working hard and you're having fun. That last season that I played at La Cueva was very special because I was just with the majority of my team that I actually played with at Eastdale Little League. A lot of those girls were so talented, and we made each other better every single day because we had a lot of girls from that team going Division I already. At the time, we had Jessica McAllister. We had Catherine Sanchez, Reno Sanchez's daughter. Rachel Hatt, who was on that team. She was a couple years younger, but she was one of the best players on that team at that time too. So it was so fun to be able to just like continue playing with the girls that I played Little League with and seeing how successful they were able to become at the D1 level too. So it was a pretty neat year, and we did very well, and I'm very honored to have been part of that team.
Ron Romero's had a good program there for many years. We have Antonio Lucero and Addison Byers play at Western now, and they've been a big part of Western's resurgence. They made the conference tournament this year, I believe. I told you about that. So Ron, I didn't even know Ron coached you. I wasn't sure. So I'll have to make sure I send him. I like Ron a lot. It's a good man. I had him on my show. Yeah, about 2 years ago, I had him on the sports desk and really like him a lot. E, go ahead, man.
Yeah, Andrea, thanks again for jumping on with us. This is an exciting conversation already, but talk to me or talk to us about more of your experience on the Little League World Series. I mean, it's what a lot of kids, when you start out playing the Little League, what you aim for, and there's just a select few individuals, group of teams that make it that far. But I mean, just everything that I went back and read on, you guys actually steamrolled pretty much any sort of competition that kind of got you guys' way. You end up beating a really good Florida team in that championship game. But talk about the relationships that maybe you guys developed with the other teams that you guys competed against. Because, I mean, what we see on TV with the Little League World Series, it's like a world combination or national competition, and everyone's just kind of integrated and thrown together. So tell me about like what that whole experience was like.
Yeah, so really the relationships with other teams started in Waco. So for regionals, they would always put on events, for all of the teams to kind of like mingle and get to know each other. At that time, we're all from the US. So it's, we're kind of like, okay, we're from New Mexico, you're from Texas, like we're neighbors, But whenever we went to the World Series, we had, it's an international tournament. So we were able to meet teams and players from other countries. And it was really cool whenever we did like the little like Little League World Series bonding situations, because like all of the teams had, their own dances, their own cheers, their own food that they like to eat before the games. So it was so cool to be able to kind of like see like different traditions from different teams kind of internationally. I think the team, I mean, they're not international, but the team that was the most fun to hang around was the Hawaiian team. They danced all the time. They had great food that they brought over, and we had a blast being able to connect with the other teams.
So cool. Did anybody that you maybe played against end up playing against you in college or kind of later on in your career? Did you guys ever reconnect?
I don't think so. I remember following one girl. She played at Georgia, and I think she was my age, and she was a pitcher. And I remember following her, but we never actually played against each other. But I always liked watching her whenever they made it to the postseason. I was always cheering her on.
Yeah, very cool. When you just threw out the name who she was a shortstop for the Lobos for a while, and then I think she ended up transferring into the transfer portal. I'm not exactly sure where she went, but it was like Tennessee or
Oklahoma
somewhere
State.
in like Oklahoma State. Okay, that's what it is. Yeah, we'll have to reach out to her and maybe get her on in a little bit. I know she had a pretty strong career at UNM too, but Ed, go ahead.
She's actually an assistant coach, isn't she, Andrea?
With she is. UNM? Yeah, she just finished
first
year as coach.
Yeah. So we definitely want to get her on. 2017, you signed with UNM and played 5 seasons. As we mentioned earlier, you had 47 home runs, and were the Lobos and the Mountain West all-time home run hitter. You're also a 2-time first-team academic All-American as well. Played for Paula Congleton, who I went to Highland with, I told you many years ago. So tell us about those years. I told you I did a lot of PA. I was out there a lot at the park, and there was just things at that time that I thought the team, you guys had some really good hitting. Sometimes pitching wasn't, and pitching's hard to get. Well, that's one of the problems they have at Western, the altitude. It's the same thing here. Touch the bat, the ball's out of the park. But you guys had some good seasons there. Tell us a little bit about your time at UNM.
Yeah, I think that we did have a couple of good seasons, whenever I played. You're right about the hitters. I think we did have a pretty strong hitting lineup consistently throughout my time there. The thing that I remember the most about playing under Paula is just her ability to be able to allow students to do more than just softball. Whenever I came into UNM, I actually signed under Erica Beach when I was recruited, and Coach Congleton, allowed me to keep playing for the Lobos. But I told her right off the bat that I would like to go to medical school, and so I had a pretty strong academic mind, and I wanted to make sure that I was doing, the right courses, any like extracurricular things that could help me get into medical school, etc. And she was just so supportive of that. And that's something that I am going to be forever grateful for. She saw my potential not only on the field, but on my academic side. And then she knew that I was a dual citizen for Italy. So every single summer she would release me, and she would allow me to go play for the Italian national team. So she, in terms of her ability to support players, I think she's absolutely incredible at that. And I'm very grateful for her.
Yeah, I'm sure you could. We'll get to the Olympics later, but that's something you can never forget, because Olympics are different. And you played for Italy, I get it, but still, we'll get to those questions. And anytime you get to see those athletes going through the village and the opening ceremonies, if you don't get goosebumps when you see that, I always do. Like, wow, because you mentioned even when you were playing softball against Texas, your neighbors, it's different on the Olympic stage, I'm sure. One of the things we heard about the support your mother, Christina, and your father, Kevin, provided for you at La Cueva High School. My friend John Romero, who's one of our loyal listeners, man, always on every show we have, has actually got to be a good friend of mine, mentioned the support that your parents gave you. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. So, they've been supportive throughout my entire academic and athletic career. Specifically when I was at La Cueva, they basically ran the PA system, and they ran the concession. And I just remember my grandpa would always come in and help my mom in the concession stands. And he was like the biggest salesman. Like, we would always sell out of, snacks, hot dogs, sunflower seeds, anything. Cause he would just go out and just get people to buy things and support our program. I think it was always special to be able to hear my dad on the doing the announcements too. And he would always put, a little extra oomph on our names whenever he was calling our names out whenever we were up to bat. And it it just makes me feel so supported and just so loved that my parents were involved in almost every single sport that I played. Once I got to UNM, at that point it's Division I coaching, and he kind of let loose a little bit, but my dad has been my number one coach my entire life. And so I'm very grateful for him and his guidance throughout my career.
Yeah, it's, John mentioned that, and I was at the Cueva about a week ago when they played Hobbs in baseball, and
Nice.
Gerard Pineda. I love Gerard, man. He's a good guy. So they came up short again. They lost to Carlsbad in the tournament, and sometimes those things happen. They do. He had what 6 Division I players, a major league. I always tease me. I have a major league staff, and I'm just saying things happen. You just don't understand. I thought for sure they were going to go out there and maybe win it all again. And Piedra Vista had, Carlsbad beat them, and then Piedra Vista wins the championship. So you never know. That's why you play the games. I got a little trivia tidbit for you here, and this comes from John Romero, man. So who was the only sibling combination to win New Mexico Player of the Year awards and go on to be successful Division I ball players?
Ooh, New Mexico Player of the Year?
New Mexico Gatorade Players of the Year, and it's something close to your heart, very close. We're asking it because it involves you for sure. You and your brother, Andrea, and
my brother?
The Gatorade Player of the Year.
I don't know. I know he was New Mexico Player of the Year.
Yeah, well, that's the question. So
okay, well, yeah, tricked me.
In fact, I was just talking to Matt Garley today, the Rio Rancho assistant baseball coach, and he was telling me what a good player your brother was.
Yeah. He was somebody I definitely looked up to when I was growing up, and I always tried to play a sport or just try to do something to beat him at something. So that's why I actually started playing softball to begin with, because my brother was pretty good at baseball. He was good at like everything he did, so I just wanted to beat him at something. I don't know if I got that title or not, but he helped me get better too.
A competition, right? That competition.
Yeah, exactly.
Eric, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was just showing the comment from John Romero. So Alex was the New Mexico 5A Player of the Year.
That's my mistake.
Which is still pretty.
5A Player of the Year.
I was almost embarrassed. I was like, did he win Gatorade Player of the Year? And I just didn't know.
That's pretty good honor, though.
It
I
is.
understand that. He was a good college player too. Matt Gardy told me what a good player he was. Go ahead, Eric.
Yeah, no. So we'll kind of stay with your folks. Your mom, a dual citizen with Italy, and kind of that's where you got the connection there. You end up playing for Italy. You just talked about traveling out there over the summers, but you were on the team that actually represented them in the Olympics, which is a pretty dang cool experience. Tell us about what that was like, and maybe representing another country that you're not currently living in. And I mean, how much did that kind of impact your life?
Sure. So we actually took a family vacation in 2016 to go see my grandma and all of my relatives out there. And during that summer, my dad was looking for softball fields that I could practice on. And I remember just thinking, I was like, I don't understand. Like, we're on vacation. I don't really want to be practicing softball right now. But lo and behold, we found a field that was like an hour away from my family's house, and there was a team practicing on it. And so my dad just asked them, if I could just hop in for their practice, just so I could, keep getting better and kind of learn how they practice. And they let me join their practice. And afterward, the coach of that team came up to my dad and was like, "Is she a dual citizen?" And my dad was like, "Yeah, she is." And at that point, he was the assistant coach for the national team. And so he invited me to come and basically try out for the national team. At that point, I was on the junior national team, but it was kind of just like a coincidental thing of I just kind of was at the right place and the right time. And so that was really cool to be able to experience that and like kind of, first see how they practice and the different skills and things that they do. But, throughout the summers, I just kept getting more and more comfortable with them. I was able to speak a little bit more, which was great because most of their players spoke mostly Italian. They knew like a little bit of English, but not a ton. So I was able to communicate more with them. I felt more comfortable just like communicating within the game situations with them. And then in 2019 is when we qualified for the Olympics. That was supposed to be in 2020. And at the time, our head coach was Enrico Obletter. And so we qualified. 2020 didn't happen, obviously, because of COVID. So, and then we played in 2021. Unfortunately, in February of 2021, our head coach actually passed away from COVID-related complications. So when we went to play in the Tokyo 2021 Olympics, we didn't have our heart of the team there. But it was still just an incredible experience. And we were all able to just, play for him, just play knowing that he was, watching us and cheering us on. And then, of course, like you're showing right now, we were able to experience very similar things to what a normal Olympics would have, like they had the opening ceremonies. We were able to, experience, the Olympic softball field, the Olympic Village, all the things. There were some COVID restrictions here and there, but ultimately it was such an incredible experience. So I'm very grateful that I was able to play with that team for the Olympics.
Go ahead, Ed.
Dad, must have been, you mentioned the Olympic Village and the COVID restrictions, which were worldwide. And that certainly hurt sports here in New Mexico. I remember the Lobo football team had to play in Las Vegas. They couldn't even play games here in New Mexico. And those times, high school sports. I remember calling a game at Santa Ana Star Center, no fans.
Yeah.
And it was weird. It was eerie because you heard the balls bouncing and kids, you hear the squeak of the shoes.
Yeah.
Nothing else, man. No vendors, no fans. And it's the weirdest experience. So, but it's still quite an experience, I'm sure. How did competing against the world's best players at the Tokyo Olympics shape your perspective on the sport? You mentioned some things that you saw culturally that were different, but how did competing against the best players shape your perspective? You saw them do different things, different training methods. How'd that shape your perspective?
Yeah, I think whenever we were at the Olympics, one, it just helped me like understand that you can always be better at whatever sport you're playing, whatever you're doing. You're always striving to be better. Of course, whenever we played, especially against Team USA and Team Japan, they have so many incredible veterans on their teams that you just watch and you learn from, and they're doing everything right all the time. Like you're never going to catch them slacking. They're doing the same thing every single game, every single play. And it's just incredible to watch. For me, I kind of found a little bit of comfort in the idea that kind of watching them and the way that they're practicing and the way that they're preparing for the games is actually very similar to how I prepared and how our team prepared. So I think that gave me a little bit more confidence that we're doing the right things, right? And we may be kind of the new team on the block, especially for the Olympics. We were, kind of the probably the least experienced team out of all of them. A lot of them had a lot of professional players, and we had a few, but most of us were pretty young. So it made us feel very comfortable knowing that we were doing the same things that these girls were doing, and we may just need a little bit more experience under our belts.
That had to have been a great experience, though. You mentioned the best players. You mentioned Japan, United States.
Yeah.
And I'm sure there's things that you learned at that time that you incorporated into your training regimen, to your game, to your batting, to whatever. Because when you're playing against the best like that, you learn. There must have been goosebumps with the Village, and you're amongst the world's best in all sports. And again, what a cultural experience. And that leads me to my next question. What was your favorite memory, cultural experience from the Olympic Village in Tokyo?
Ooh, I think it's just the wide variety of food they offered at the Olympic Village. One thing that they don't really tell you about the Olympic Village is that, whenever these countries are coming, they try to accommodate for every country in terms of like the food that they eat. So that whenever they're like trying to compete at their best, they have very similar foods as to what they were eating whenever they were training. So for me, I personally didn't have like a specific diet. I was just, generally healthy, high energy diet. So I would go and like try all sorts of foods from all sorts of countries. And I probably ate a little bit too much, but I just thought it was like so cool to be able to just try new foods from other countries. It was so cool.
Oh yeah, I bet that was a great experience.
Yeah.
Eric?
Yeah, now moving more into like the educational part of your career and kind of some of your aspirations in the medical field, but you're currently finishing up your third year of medical school at UNM. Are there any kind of specific things that maybe playing sports kind of translated into that and helping you maybe prepare something you learned on the softball field that kind of goes over with dealing with studies or the pressures of being in medical school?
Yeah, I think there are a couple of things. One, of course, like the most obvious is the work ethic. Whenever you start medical school, your first year is very similar to college, that you're mostly in the classroom, you're mostly doing textbook work, but it's just a significant amount of material that you have to memorize and understand. And we're taking exams every week. So it's just a higher level of academic work. That's where work ethic comes in, to make sure that I'm staying on top of my studies, making sure that I'm, being diligent with my time with things, making sure that I'm able to complete things around the house, etc. Some other things that I think are kind of less known is when you get into the clinical rotation realm, there are times that you can be a leader in the clinical realm, and there are times that you need to be led in the clinical realm. And that's something that like I learned very quickly in my clinical rotations is whenever there was a younger student on board, I was more than happy to be the leader, to be what, in athletics, you would consider the captain, to try to help them get up to speed, make sure that everybody's on the same page. But there were other times that there may have been a specific diagnosis or a specific management strategy that I may not have known. And so I wanted to be led in those situations. And I think that that ability really came from sports, is being able to know when I was a leader and when I should be a follower. Another thing that I think kind of helped me in the medical world is just having the ability to understand that it just takes time to be good at something. For sports, especially with baseball and softball, you're not supposed to be good right off the bat. If you get on base and you get a base hit 3 out of 10 times, you're like one of the best hitters on the planet, right? So I think just the idea that you have to give yourself enough time and put in the effort and put in the work ethic and the energy to be good at something. And that'll take you far, especially in medicine. There's so much to learn in medicine, and there's just all new treatments and management strategies and just new science that's coming in medicine, that you just have to give yourself the grace and the patience to be good at what you want to do.
Yeah, it's a really interesting take.
Yeah.
And that I had a conversation with my boss. I work in the medical equipment sales here in Albuquerque, and
Nice.
it's hard, but yeah, I look to hire people that have like an athletic background, because those are the type of people that are highly competitive, very active, but yeah, want to take that role of being a leader, but can also kind of find their place and take a step back and want to be able to learn and be patient with that whole process. Take a step back from before you committed to UNM, you had aspirations of kind of joining the medical industry and wanting to kind of take the time to go to school at UNM in the medical field. What kind of drew you to medicine, and like when did you decide that that's what you wanted to do?
Yeah, I mean, I think I always knew I wanted to do something medicine related. When I was little, I remember being in kindergarten, and this is like kind of strange, but one of my friends had like a pretty big cut on her forehead, and I was so intrigued by it. I thought it was like the coolest thing in the world. I was with her at the nurse, like with the nurse. I was just like watching what the nurse was doing for her, and I knew that I wanted to be in that realm of helping people when they needed help the most. Then kind of fast forward and learning a little bit more about medicine and exactly what a physician does, I was really inclined and intrigued with the idea of just like human physiology in general. I think the human body is one of the coolest things on the planet. And I like being able to be in a situation that has to be efficient in order to take care of, multiple patients at a time. When I was an undergrad at UNM, while I was playing softball, I actually did a research class. And after that research class, my professor was offering research assistant positions, like as a part-time job. And so I asked Coach Congleton if I could do it, maybe like 2 or 3 times a week after practice. I would just go and, do a couple of research studies with this team of researchers, and she let me. And so I was a research assistant for my last 2 years while playing softball. And then after that, I actually took a gap year and was a research coordinator in the emergency department at UNM. So I was able to kind of find, networking strategies throughout that position to make sure I had, good letters of rec going into medical school. So it was really fun. It was interesting.
Very cool. Yeah, working in the emergency department is a whole different side of chaos that I don't think a lot of people like really understand. But for you to be willing to kind of get that experience, especially like at a teaching school, like a teaching hospital like UNM is, you see a lot of crazy stuff in the ED. But Ed, go ahead, take it away.
My niece is a nurse in Evanston, Wyoming, and she works the emergency room, and she tells me about it all the time. I'm very proud of her. I always felt she had the people skills and the human compassion to do that, and she's done really well. But it's it's hard work, Andrea. There's no doubt about it. But I like the way you talk to athletes, like Eric said, that adrenaline, even the adrenaline, I think for an athlete never stops, even for older people, man. We had a call. I go on with Kenny Thomas on the show Unfiltered, and this guy called in a couple of weeks ago, and he was mad about something, and he's 77, but he's saying, hey, I ran a marathon when I was 53 backward. And you could hear the passion still about being a former athlete. His granddaughter plays basketball at La Cueva. And when he was done, I told Kenny, I said, man, that guy, wow, he's still on fire. So I think, yeah, you're go ahead. Go ahead. Were you going to say something?
No, I disagree with you. Whenever you're an athlete, you kind of stay an athlete your whole life. You kind of keep that competitive mindset and basically the efficient mindset, the detail-oriented mindset, basically the rest of your career.
I don't know. Sometimes I got to say, because I played basketball, I coached, and then I officiated. Now I'm a broadcaster. And I think sometimes I had to get myself out of the way. Sometimes, it's like, oh, hell no. That competitiveness sometimes comes out, and sometimes it's not appropriate. So sometimes I'm like, okay. And I'm yeah. So, but I think Eric's right. For an athlete, your adrenaline is always going if you've been out there on the field. And if you look at the experiences you had as a young athlete and you're still having, and we got a couple more questions for you. But what field of medicine are you hoping to specialize in, and how do you plan to stay connected to the softball community in the future?
Yeah, I'll be applying into an anesthesiology residency in the fall. In terms of being able to stay connected to the softball community, I was telling Eric before we went live, I would really love to stay here for residency. I would love to just continue being an advocate for student athletes and just kind of showing them that really anything is possible whenever you are a student athlete, especially at UNM. I think UNM athletics gives you a lot of resources in terms of the athletic side, but the academic side as well. And I think if athletes just tap into that a little bit more, they really can just achieve whatever they want in life. So that's kind of my goal, is to be able to stay connected to the softball community and like the athletics community at UNM by hopefully staying here at UNM.
Boy, we need it. We really do. We need more. You know what the situation is with doctors in this state. I'm sure you're well aware of it. There's been a lot of doctors that have left, and we need more doctors, one at a time. We certainly do. I've got one more question, and Eric wanted to ask you about the 2024 Home Run Derby. We're not going to miss that. No way. But you're married to former UNM baseball player Jared Mang, who himself was a 2-time All-Mountain West performer, was drafted by the Detroit Tigers, works now for ABA. That's a lot of great players coming out of ABA. Tell us how that you guys were playing together at UNM at that time. Tell us how that all came to be.
Yeah, so we actually had a mutual friend when we were much younger. And so we knew of each other, but we never really connected until we got to UNM. It depends on who you ask in terms of how this story develops, because in my perspective, we really met in October of October 2018, and he came up to me and was kind of talking at a Halloween party, and after the Halloween party, he messaged me, hoping that I got home safely, and I kind of was playing hard to get, but he understood it as I just wasn't interested. So we didn't speak again until I think February or March of the next year. And he actually, I was still kind of interested in him and learning more about him. And I remember we were on the road one weekend, and they were out playing University of Arizona, and it was a tight game. There was a runner on second base, and I think the game was tied at the top of the ninth, and Jared was up. And I told my friend, if he scores this winning run, I'll DM him. So we're in the social media realm, and sure enough, he ends up scoring the winning run. So I messaged him on Instagram, just congratulating him, and it kind of just like kicked off from there, and we never stopped talking, and and we ended up getting married this past January. So it's been an incredible ride with him.
That's so awesome, and we congratulate you both. Of course, him and his brother Connor played at UNM, and I told you I did a lot of PA at that time, and I can still hear his mom, "Come on, man, go!" I can still hear her, man. I think
she's on this podcast. She's watching somewhere.
Yeah, well, you know what? I used to love when they came up, because I was up in the booth, and you could hear her down there, and that's a mom. That's a mom and a big fan, and you heard her throughout the park, and I don't mean that in a bad way. She's a big fan, and she was going to make sure that everybody knew she was there to cheer for her sons, man. And they were good ball players, both of them, very good ball players.
Yeah, so. I remember hearing her whenever I was playing softball and the boys were playing baseball. She'd be at the top of the bleachers, and she'd be yelling at me too on the softball field. So she was supporting everybody.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Eric, you've got one last question for Andrea about the 2024 Home Run Derby.
Yeah, I do. Then we're going to have to get Mango on the show next and get his side of the story on the whole DM situation, because it might play out a little bit differently. But you guys, so married now, loving baseball, the story, pretty cool story to hear about. But you guys, is it competed against each other or competed as a team in the Home Run Derby that was held at Isotopes Park that Manny Ramirez was kind of a part of? And I wasn't able to attend, but I know that it was a pretty cool event. Tell us about like how that played out, and maybe when you guys got the call about the invitation. It's something you can't turn down, but definitely a story that you're going to tell your kids and grandkids about someday.
Totally. Yeah. So we were both invited to play in the Home Run Derby. We were on opposite teams, like you can see here. I was on the Lobos with current UNM Lobo, Gene Trujillo, and Jared was on a different team, the Green Chili Cheeseburgers. And it was so fun. And that was my first experience of hitting like overhand BP. So Jared, just being the person he is and being so generous, he basically hit with me and was like throwing me overhand BP for maybe 2 months before the Home Run Derby, just because I didn't really know how to hit overhand BP. So I just wanted to make sure that like I, was able to do it. So he helped me a lot with that. But, kind of at the end of the Home Run Derby, it was funny because we were on opposite teams and we were in the finals competing against each other. And my team ended up winning the entire Home Run Derby, but he ended up winning MVP. So it was kind of like a happy ending for everybody, that everyone was able to win something. And I'm just so grateful to have been able to compete at something so cool with my fiance at the time. So it was really neat.
Well, Ed, I don't know if you have any more questions, but I got a few just random fire away questions for Andrea. Just going to throw some at you, kind of some rapid fire, and see what your response is. But if you had to pick a walk-up song right now, what would that walk-up song be?
Ooh, that's a good question. Oh gosh, I think I would pick something Paramore. I like Paramore a lot. What would I pick? I don't know. Maybe like Ignorance or something like that.
Okay, final answer. What is a harder pitch to hit, overhand or underhand?
I think underhand.
Shorter distance, you have to be super reactive, right? I would
Yeah,
think, and you have to deal with the riser. That's something I don't know, like how from up,
yeah,
right, from down to up. Yeah, I couldn't figure that out either.
yeah. The high inside pitches got me every single time. So I have to say underhand.
If you weren't going into anesthesiology, if that wasn't like the section of medicine that you chose, what other form of medicine maybe would you be interested or intriguing enough to explore?
I would probably say surgery. I general surgery was another consideration I had. I just really like the operating room, so I just want to be in the OR some way, shape, or form.
Got it. Cool. And then last question, if if Andrea Howard now could give any sort of advice to the younger Andrea Howard before she started playing Little League, what would that advice be?
Um, like I said earlier, I think just to give yourself time to be good at something. When I was younger and when now I'm a pretty impatient person. And I know that. So being able to know that earlier in my career would have been nice to kind of give myself some grace to have some wiggle room and get better every single day and instead of kind of expecting perfection.
Patience is definitely something that I think all of us can probably do a better job of practicing every day. Ed, any final thoughts or questions from you?
No, Andrea, I'll tell you what, we really appreciate you being our guest. We wish you all the luck in medical school. Glad that you want to stay here. We need as many doctors in the state as we can possibly get. But it was very interesting going back and talking to you about your experience at Eastdale, the Cueva, at UNM in the Olympics, and your marriage to Jared now. So, yeah, we'd love to get him on in another separate Deep in the Dugout episode. So we really appreciate you joining us, and I wish you all the luck in the world.
Well, thank you. Thank you guys again for having me. It was such an honor to be able to chat with you both.
Yeah, you bet. You bet. That was Andrea Howard on Deep in the Dugout. We appreciate her coming on. Eric, we'll be back after these. You and I will be back after these messages on Deep in the Dugout.
Swing big and save even bigger with our big league markdowns at Capital Ford and Santa Fe. This is your shot at big league deals, like a new 2025 Ford F-150 XLT 4-wheel drive Power Boost Hybrid, now up to $9,900 off MSRP, or a new 2026 Ford F-250 Super Duty, now up to $6,100 off MSRP. We're offering up home run deals all day, every day, with these big league markdowns at Capital Ford and Santa Fe.
Welcome back to the Pit Press Live Deep in the Dugout. Ed Nunez along with Eric Bolton. Our guest tonight was Andrea Howard, the former Lobo Softball All-American, and a very impressive young lady. Again, thanks to John Romero, one of our loyal. First time, when we started this, John has been on just about every time we've been on. He's had a comment. He's actually become a friend of mine. And we talked this morning. He sent me some notes and some questions. And he was really instrumental in getting us, Andrea, on the show. And Eric, what'd you think of her, man?
Extremely impressive. Not only from like a resume perspective, but just starting out with where she did. She accomplished a lot at a young age, and she's still fairly young. But to kind of accomplish as much as she has in that short lifespan, and working towards a medical degree and to be a doctor, and kind of all keep it at home. And I think you touched a really sensitive topic with keeping doctors in the state of New Mexico. And I know with the legislation changing some of the guidelines and some of the insurance stuff that doctors have to deal with to keep local talent here. But really impressive from like an athletic standpoint too, to go from winning the Little League World Series in softball to getting recruited or going undefeated at La Cueva, which puts out a ton of athletes, and then being able to accomplish what she did at UNM and then going to the Olympics. Man, this is like her story is pretty much unheard of for how much she's kind of done in that whole realm. So just really impressive lady. And again, I always say it on these podcasts or these shows that like this is kind of the reason, the genuine reason why we put this show together or put the podcast together was just to tell these athletes unique stories. I think every athlete has a different way of doing things. They got brought up a different way, had different life experiences, and we want to provide a platform that they can kind of express that and people get to know a different side of them than seeing the athletes on the field or on the court or whatever it might be. So really impressive young lady. I hope to reconnect with her at some point, maybe in our professional careers, but it was a cool conversation. I'm glad John was able to help us out and get him on, and hopefully we can land Jared Meng too. That would be another cool conversation because he was drafted in like the 18th round for the Detroit Tigers, I think too. So
yeah, he was. He was.
What did you think?
Right. You're right about Andrea. Even when I texted her last week and asked her about coming on the show, very nice, respectful, wanted to be on. She said she was honored. We're the ones that were honored to have her on. Like we said, we've had some decorated athletes on this show, and she's right at the top, of the people that we've had on. But I did want to announce, Eric, the Lobos have signed A.J. Pierre Jerome. I sent you the link. I don't know if you got it or not, but he's a big man, a 6'10" big man that averaged 5 out of Hutchinson Community College. He played there a little bit, and Dodge City, I think. They've we'll know more about him in the next couple of days. Nick Nunez, my son, will be writing, I'm sure, a preview about him. Nick's one of the hardest working journalists in the game for sure, and he's got a job that he works around that. So just let people know, another Lobo recruit. Eric, before we get off tonight, you did the 4A baseball championship with my son on Saturday, right after I did the 3A, with East Mountain winning against St. Mike's 10-0. I'm actually going to have the East Mountain head coach on tomorrow on the sports desk. They set a season record for runs scored, 410 runs scored for East Mountain this year, and unbelievable. Tell us your thoughts about the 4A baseball game that you worked with my son.
Really good game. Kind of a tale of two different halves, right? If Artesia jumped out of the gate right off the bat, they were up 2-0, like right after the first inning. Their pitcher was, I forget his name, Herrera, was really settled in, was very much in total control of that game, and kind of kept Goddard off balance. But then Goddard finally chipped away, and there was a kind of a big turning moment in the game in the fourth inning. One of the Goddard, he ended up being player of the game, but he ended up hitting a 2-run home run in the top of the fourth inning that kind of turned the tides, and they never looked back. It was a 4-4 game, and then all of a sudden Goddard just ran away with it and ended up going up 10-4. But really good baseball. Disciplined, good plate appearances. Both really well-coached teams play the game the right way. Shortstop from Goddard was really good too. Real great hands, very mobile, athletic. So there's the shortstop too. I'm slipping all these names. I had all these notes written down, but the shortstop from Artesia is actually committed to play at the University of Arizona, which is a highly sought out baseball program. So I think there's just so many athletes, Ed, we talk about it all the time, just from the state of New Mexico that we're not disconnected from. I think we're kind of in the metro. We kind of stay close connected to what's going on up north in Santa Fe. We don't get enough news from down south, some of the southern high schools. There's a lot of great athletes down south too. And watching that game, the state championship, kind of proved that there's just a lot of good baseball players, a lot of good athletes, softball players, football players, basketball players from the state. So I think we do a pretty good job of kind of getting that news out, and would like to kind of keep us on that track to keep shedding more light on those stories that deserve more attention.
I know Nick really enjoyed. You played college baseball, Eric. Tell us again where you played at.
I played at Luna Community College for 2 years, and then I went out to a year at Peru, Nebraska, which was an NAIA school, for my third year, and then I ended up transferring back to finish up at Highlands. So I kind of bounced around a lot, but I got to experience the Midwest. Junior college baseball is a different level too. It's a feeder program into the Division Ones, and my first college baseball game, we actually played against Ray Birmingham's New Mexico junior college team, and they were coming off of a national championship. They had, I don't know, more than a dozen players that looked like grown men. They were from the Dominican Republic, Puerto Rico, Venezuela, and they were our age, but they were like some of the best baseball players I've ever seen in my entire life. And really cool experience for me. And I know that there's a lot of cool kids now, like, that are playing high school ball that aim to play at the next level too. And for New Mexico athletes, that's the goal. And you can definitely get out there. It's really just making those connections.
I know Nick really appreciated having a color guy on the nose baseball. And I work with former Valley head coach Roger Cordova. And I know I appreciated Coach Cordova because he knows, hitting behind the runner. What's a 3-2, 3-2 pitch? What are they going to be looking for? So I know I appreciated Coach Cordova. Eric, that's going to wrap it up tonight for the Pit Press Live. Deep in the Dugout with our guest tonight was Andrea Howard. I think my son's going to be back Wednesday for a show, and we'll be previewing that. For producer and owner of the Pit Press, Eric Moulton, I'm Ed Nunez. Thanks again for joining us on Deep in the Dugout.